Rocks from deep space do not slow down. They do not adjust their paths. They do not pick targets. The laws of physics are very clear about this. An object moving through the vacuum follows the forces acting upon it. Nothing more, nothing less. Gravity pulls, momentum carries. These fundamental rules have governed the motion of every object in the cosmos since the beginning of time itself. But 3i Atlas is breaking those rules. Right now, as you listen to these words, this interstellar traveler is heading toward Jupiter with a precision that should not exist. And what happens next could change everything we thought we knew about our solar system and our place within it. Welcome to Space Atlas. Mark your calendars for March 17th, 26. On that day, 3i Atlas will reach a tiny moon called Euphime, hidden deep within Jupiter's gravitational territory. Now, according to every model we have built over centuries of studying orbital mechanics, this arrival should be mathematically impossible. An object screaming in from interstellar space carries far too much velocity to simply settle into orbit around a planet. The speeds required to cross the distances between stars are immense. And that same speed that enables the journey should prevent any possibility of stopping. The object should whip past Jupiter and vanish into the outer darkness, never to return. That is what the equations tell us. That is what every principle of celestial mechanics demands. But the equations do not seem to apply here. Government agencies have quietly classified much of the data surrounding this object. Mainstream scientific institutions keep insisting that everything we are seeing is just unusual but natural behavior. Coincidence, they say. Strange physics, they suggest. Nothing to worry about. Go back to your normal lives and let the experts handle this. I have spent weeks examining the available information. I have studied the trajectory plots late into the night. I have read every spectroscopic analysis I could find. I have consulted with researchers who are willing to speak off the record, and I cannot accept the comfortable explanation. Something does not add up. The numbers tell a story that the official narrative refuses to acknowledge. This is not a random flyby. This looks like an arrival, a planned rendezvous with a destination that was chosen long before 3i Atlas entered our solar system. Perhaps long before humanity even existed. Let me walk you through the evidence. First, we need to understand why reaching Jupiter in this manner is so extraordinary. When objects travel between stars, they move at tremendous speeds. The distances involved are so vast that anything moving slowly would take millions of years to complete the journey. 3i Atlas is covering ground at a pace that puts our fastest spacecraft to shame. That velocity is necessary for interstellar travel, but it creates a serious problem when you want to stop somewhere. Imagine driving a car at 200 miles per hour and trying to park in a garage you have never seen before. You would shoot right through the back wall. The speed that gets you there quickly is the same speed that prevents you from stopping. In space, there is no friction, there is no air resistance. There is nothing to slow you down except gravity, and gravity works both ways. It pulls you in, but if you are moving fast enough, you simply curve around and keep going. For 3i Atlas to enter orbit around Jupiter, it needs to shed an enormous amount of velocity at exactly the right moment, and there is no natural mechanism for that to happen. Comets do not have brakes, asteroids cannot decide to slow down. Unless an object falls directly into a planet and crashes, which would destroy it, there is no way for it to simply stop and stay. Yet 3i Atlas appears to be doing exactly that. To appreciate how precise this approach is, we need to talk about something called the Hill sphere. Every planet has one. It represents the region of space where that planet's gravity dominates over the gravity of the sun. Think of it as an invisible boundary drawn in the fabric of space itself. Everything inside the boundary belongs to the planet. Moons orbit within it. Rings stay contained by it. Everything outside still answers primarily to the sun, following the solar gravity well on journeys that take them around and around our star. The concept was developed by the American astronomer George William Hill in the late 19th century, and it revolutionized our understanding of how objects behave in multi-body gravitational systems. Without this mathematical framework, we could not plan missions to other planets. We could not predict where moons will be decades from now. We could not understand how the solar system holds itself together. Jupiter, being the most massive planet in our solar system, has an enormous Hill sphere. It extends approximately 53.5 million kilometers from the planet itself. To put that number in perspective that our minds can grasp, you could place thousands of Earths in a line across that span. The distance from Earth to the Sun is about 150 million kilometers. Jupiter's gravitational reach extends more than a third of that distance in every direction. It is a staggering volume of space under the control of a single planet. Any object that crosses into this zone and moves slowly enough will become trapped, captured by Jupiter's gravitational embrace. The planet becomes a cosmic spider, and its hill sphere is the web. Once you are inside and moving at the right speed, you do not escape. 3I Atlas is approaching this boundary at 53.6 million kilometers. Look at those numbers carefully, 53.5 versus 53.6. The difference is barely 0.1%. We are talking about a margin of error smaller than what most spacecraft achieve, even with teams of engineers calculating trajectories for months. This object is threading the needle with surgical accuracy. It is skimming the edge of Jupiter's gravitational domain, like a pilot choosing the perfect glide slope for landing on an unfamiliar runway in zero visibility conditions. If you saw a human pilot execute a maneuver this precise after traveling millions of miles through empty space, you would call them a master. When an interstellar object does the same thing, we are supposed to believe it is just a coincidence. I find that very difficult to accept. The precision alone would be remarkable enough, but there is more. 3I Atlas has exhibited something called non-gravitational acceleration. This means the object is changing speed or direction in ways that gravity cannot explain. Something else is providing thrust, something is pushing this object in ways we cannot see. Scientists have proposed various explanations. Outgassing, they suggest. Comets release gas as they warm near the sun, and those jets can act like tiny rockets, nudging the object in different directions. That is a real phenomenon. We have observed it on other comets, but the pattern we see from 3I Atlas does not match typical outgassing behavior. The accelerations are too consistent, too controlled, too purposeful. Then there is the chemical signature. Spectroscopic analysis allows us to determine what an object is made of by studying the light it reflects and emits. When researchers examined 3I Atlas, they found something strange. The ratio of nickel to iron is unusually high. In natural objects, these two metals typically appear together in predictable proportions. They form in the hearts of dying stars and get distributed through space when those stars explode. Finding them in different ratios suggests something unusual about how the object formed. High concentrations of nickel, separated from iron, often indicate industrial processing, refining, manufacturing, the kind of metallurgy you would use if you were building something designed to survive an extremely long journey through the harsh environment between stars. Something that needed to resist radiation, something that needed to remain functional after traveling in the cold darkness for thousands or millions of years. Some researchers have quietly suggested that what we are seeing might not be natural outgassing at all. It might be a propulsion system, a highly efficient drive disguised as a natural process. Others push back forcefully, insisting we simply do not understand cometary behavior well enough to draw such conclusions. Both sides make valid points, but here is what troubles me most. Comets do not perform course corrections. They do not adjust their trajectories after passing the sun. They follow the paths that physics dictates. 3I Atlas changed direction. It refined its approach. It made what looks very much like a deliberate choice. And that choice is leading it toward one of the strangest neighborhoods in our entire solar system. The destination is not just Jupiter in general. 3I Atlas is heading for a specific cluster of moons called the Enigma group. These are not the famous Jovian moons you might have learned about in school. They are not Io with its hundreds of active volcanoes painting the surface in shades of yellow and red, making it the most geologically active body in the entire solar system. They are not Europa, with its smooth icy shell concealing a vast liquid ocean that might harbor life in the dark waters beneath. They are not Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, bigger than the planet Mercury, with its own magnetic field and complex geology. These famous moons orbit close to Jupiter, moving in the same direction the planet rotates, following the natural flow of the Jovian system. The Enigma group is something else entirely. These moons are small, they are irregularly shaped, more like tumbling potatoes than smooth spheres. Their surfaces are dark and cratered, beaten by billions of years of micrometeorite impacts. And most importantly, they orbit Jupiter backwards. We call this retrograde motion. While all the major moons spin around Jupiter in the same direction the planet rotates, the Ananke group moves against the flow. Imagine a crowded highway where every vehicle travels east at high speed, and then you notice a small convoy driving west, weaving between the eastbound traffic. That is the Ananke group. They do not follow the rules. The conventional explanation is that these moons are captured asteroids, rocks that wandered too close to Jupiter eons ago and got trapped in its gravitational web. The retrograde orbit is explained by the angle at which they were captured. Coming in from certain directions at certain speeds would naturally result in backwards orbits. The explanation makes sense on paper. It fits our models. It requires no exotic physics or uncomfortable possibilities, but something has always bothered researchers who look closely at this group. Despite decades of missions to Jupiter, despite sending Galileo to orbit the giant planet for years, despite Juno currently studying the Jovian system in unprecedented detail, the Ananke group remains almost completely undocumented. We have sent cameras capable of photographing license plates from orbit around Earth. We have imaging technology that can resolve features meters across on distant worlds. Yet when it comes to the Ananke group, we have blurry pixels, we have faint dots of reflected light, we have almost nothing that tells us what these objects actually look like up close. It is as if they exist in a blind spot, as if something about them resists scrutiny, as if they do not want to be examined. Consider Eupheme specifically. This tiny moon measures only about 2 kilometers across, a speck in the vastness of space. You could walk across it in an afternoon if you could somehow stand on its surface. It is one of the smallest objects we have ever categorized as a moon. On March 17, 26, just one day after crossing Jupiter's Hill sphere, 3I Atlas will make a close approach to this insignificant rock. Stop and think about what that means. Really think about it. An object has traveled across the light years separating stars. It has crossed distances that make the span between Earth and Mars look like a step across a puddle. It has journeyed through the cold, empty darkness between solar systems for thousands or perhaps millions of years. And its destination is a 2-kilometer moon that orbits backwards in a region of the Jovian system that nobody pays attention to. Why would anything make that journey for that destination? If you wanted to hide something in the Jovian system, a beacon perhaps, a station, a point of contact, a listening post, where would you put it? You would choose somewhere isolated, somewhere that the natural flow of the system would help conceal, somewhere that moves against the grain, making it harder for casual observation to track. Somewhere that our missions and telescopes routinely overlook because there are always more interesting targets nearby. The Ananke group fits that description perfectly. It is the last place anyone would look, which makes it the perfect place to wait. I keep thinking about the timing. In January 2026, Eupheme reached Apogee, the point in its orbit where it is farthest from Jupiter. At that moment, this tiny moon was as far from the giant planet as its orbit ever takes it. It is as if this insignificant rock stepped out of the crowd to meet the incoming visitor halfway, extended a hand across the void. The mathematical precision required for this kind of synchronization is extraordinary. Two objects moving through the vastness of space, following completely different trajectories, governed by completely different forces, arriving at the same point at the same time. One coming from another star system entirely, the other circling Jupiter in its ancient retrograde dance. The odds against this happening by pure coincidence are astronomical. We are talking about probabilities so small that calling it coincidence stretches the meaning of the word beyond recognition. If 3I Atlas enters a stable orbit alongside Eupheme, our understanding of how irregular moons form collapses. Rocks do not choose to join retrograde groups. They do not navigate across interstellar distances to park themselves next to specific objects. That would require intention, purpose, planning on a scale we can barely comprehend. Researchers have been tracking the light curve of 3I Atlas, studying how it reflects sunlight as it rotates. The data reveals a metallic sheen, a reflective quality that is very difficult for natural objects to maintain after extended exposure to space. Cosmic radiation damages surfaces over time. Micrometeorite impacts create pitting and dust. The interstellar medium slowly erodes everything that passes through it. Natural objects that have traveled for millions of years should look worn, weathered, ancient, but 3I Atlas appears too clean, too bright, too reflective. It looks like something that was protected during its long journey. or something that recently activated after a very long dormancy. Like a machine powering up after centuries of sleep, there is a concept that has been circulating among researchers studying this phenomenon. They call it the alligator paradox. It captures something essential about how human minds process information that threatens our worldview. Picture two people standing at the edge of a river on a peaceful afternoon. The sun is warm, birds are singing, everything feels safe and familiar. Both people notice a long, dark shape floating in the water near the far bank. One person glances at it briefly and sees a log, just driftwood carried by the current. Nothing to think about. They turn back to their conversation and forget about it immediately. A log is safe, a log is familiar, a log fits perfectly into their understanding of how rivers work and what floating objects are. No adjustment required, no alarm bells ringing, life continues normally. The other person keeps watching. Something about the shape bothers them at a level below conscious thought. An ancient instinct, perhaps, inherited from ancestors who survived because they paid attention to such details. They notice what might be eyes at one end, catching the light in a way wood does not. They observe how the shape moves slowly against the current, not with it. Logs drift downstream, they follow the water. This thing is moving upstream under its own power. A cold realization settles over them, spreading from their gut to their mind. That is not a log. That is an alligator. If it is an alligator, everything changes instantly. You cannot go back into the water for a refreshing swim. You cannot let children play near the shore. You cannot assume the river is safe. You must accept that a predator has entered your environment, something with teeth, something with hunger, something with millions of years of evolution shaping it into a perfect hunting machine, something that does not care about your comfort or your assumptions or your plans for the afternoon. The person who sees the log will sleep well tonight. The person who sees the alligator will not, and here is the crucial insight. They are both looking at the same shape in the water. The only difference is in their willingness to see uncomfortable truths. 3I Atlas is our alligator. We see the non-gravitational acceleration that defies every model in our textbooks. We see the unusual chemical composition with its excess nickel suggesting industrial rather than natural origins. We see the precise targeting of an obscure retrograde moon that orbits in the shadows where nobody looks. All the evidence points in the same direction. All the signs align. But the institutions, the official scientific voices, the agencies that should be investigating most intensely, they desperately want to call it a rock. They need it to be a rock. Because if they acknowledge the alligator, they must acknowledge that we are not alone in this universe. And that acknowledgement changes everything about how we understand our existence. Reports have surfaced that data concerning 3I Atlas is being handled under secrecy protocols dating back to 1947. That year carries tremendous weight for those familiar with the history of unexplained phenomena. It was the year of the Roswell incident, the year when something fell from the sky in the New Mexico desert, and the official story shifted multiple times before settling on weather balloon, an explanation that satisfied almost nobody who looked closely at the evidence. It was the year when government secrecy about anomalous events became standard practice, the year when the modern era of official denial and classified files truly began. Why would a comet trigger protocols nearly 80 years old? This is a question that deserves a serious answer. If 3I Atlas were simply an unusual but natural object, a chunk of ice and rock behaving in unexpected ways due to exotic physics we have not yet understood, why classify the data at all? We share information about comets openly all the time. Amateur astronomers around the world track them with backyard telescopes and publish their findings online within hours. Scientific papers about cometary behavior circulate freely through journals and conferences. Transparency is the norm in this field. It is how science operates, how knowledge advances, but that is not happening here. Orbital coordinates have been redacted from public databases. High-resolution images remain classified behind security clearances. Information that should flow freely through the scientific community for peer review and analysis is being controlled by agencies that have no obvious reason to care about a snowball from deep space. These are not the actions taken when dealing with a merely unusual natural phenomenon. These are the precautions taken when dealing with something that might have implications beyond astronomy, something that touches on questions of national security, perhaps even planetary security, something that authorities do not want the public thinking too carefully about. The silence from official sources speaks loudly to those willing to listen. NASA issues no statements, the European Space Agency offers no commentary. Observatories that should be competing to publish groundbreaking findings about this extraordinary visitor remain oddly quiet. Press releases that would normally trumpet such a discovery are nowhere to be found. The absence of information is itself a form of information. It tells us that what they are seeing does not fit the comfortable narrative they want to maintain. It tells us that decisions are being made behind closed doors about what the public should and should not know. And throughout human history, that kind of secrecy has never been employed to hide things that are mundane. 3I Atlas is moving against the current of our solar system. It is heading toward a destination with purpose, and we are being told to look away, to accept explanations that require ignoring evidence, to see the log instead of the alligator. But the object keeps slowing down. Nature does not provide brakes. Rocks do not decelerate as they approach planets unless they are about to crash. 3I Atlas is not crashing, it is arriving, it is parking. If researchers like Avi Loeb are correct, and a new moon appears in Jupiter's system after March 17th, that will constitute evidence of technology, not natural processes, not statistical anomalies, not coincidences piled upon coincidences until the explanation becomes absurd. Technology, something built by intelligence, something designed with purpose, something sent. Jupiter currently has 95 confirmed moons orbiting in its vast gravitational domain. If 3I Atlas enters stable orbit, it becomes the 96th. But unlike every other moon in that system, this one will not have been there since the formation of the solar system. This one will have arrived. This one will have chosen to stay. The implications of that are staggering. We stand at a threshold that humanity has never crossed before. The events of March 2026 may simply confirm that even the strangest natural objects can behave in ways we never predicted. That would be a comfortable outcome. It would let us return to our normal assumptions about the cosmos. Or the events of March may confirm something far more profound, that we share this universe with intelligences we cannot comprehend, operating on timescales we cannot grasp, with purposes we cannot imagine, that the silence of the cosmos was never emptiness but merely patience. I know where I will be on March 16th. I will be watching every data stream I can access, waiting for the telemetry, holding my breath as 3I Atlas crosses Jupiter's hill sphere and approaches Euphime. Because if the map of our solar system is about to be redrawn, I want to witness it happening. I want to see the moment when everything changes. For centuries, we assumed we were the only observers. We pointed telescopes at the stars and believed we were alone in our watching. We sent radio signals into the void, messages encoded with information about who we are and where we live, and waited for answers that never came. We built our civilizations on the assumption that the silence of the cosmos meant emptiness, that across all those billions of galaxies and trillions of stars, we were the only minds wondering about existence, the only intelligence asking questions about the nature of reality. It was a lonely assumption, but also a comfortable one. It put us at the center of everything. It made our struggles and achievements meaningful in a way they would not be if the universe were crowded with others far more advanced. But silence does not mean absence. Sometimes silence means patience. Sometimes it means waiting for the right moment. Sometimes it means that whoever is out there operates on timescales so vast that our entire recorded history is just a brief moment to them. A few thousand years means nothing to an intelligence that thinks in millions. And whatever has been waiting out there in the darkness between stars may finally be ready to make its presence known, not with a dramatic announcement, not with ships descending from the sky, but with a subtle arrival, an object sliding quietly into orbit around a distant moon where nobody thought to look. A message delivered not in words, but in mathematics and motion. The universe is far larger than we were taught, far more complex than our models suggest, far more crowded with mysteries we have only begun to glimpse. 3I Atlas is forcing us to confront that reality. Not as abstract philosophy debated in university lecture halls, not as science fiction scenarios explored in movies and novels, as immediate truth demanding our attention right now, in the present moment, while we still have time to decide how we will respond. Something is approaching Jupiter. Something that should not be able to do what it is doing. Something heading for a destination that makes no sense unless that destination was chosen deliberately, perhaps chosen before our species even existed. We can pretend otherwise. We can cling to comfortable explanations that require us to ignore more and more evidence with each passing month. Or we can watch with clear eyes and accept whatever truth emerges, no matter how strange that truth might be. The alligator is in the river. The question is whether we are brave enough to see it for what it is. Whether we have the courage to accept that our understanding of the universe may be about to expand in ways we never anticipated. Whether we can handle the weight of knowing we are not alone. Thank you for joining me on Space Atlas. If this exploration resonated with you, consider subscribing so you can follow this story as it develops over the coming months. Hit the notification bell to stay updated as March approaches. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think 3i Atlas really is? What do you believe will happen when it reaches Eupheum? What would it mean for humanity if we confirm that something from another star system has chosen to stay in our solar system? I read every comment because in this search for truth, we are all searching together. No single person has all the answers. No institution holds a monopoly on understanding. The stars have been watching us far longer than we realized. Perhaps it is time we watched back with clearer vision and braver hearts. Something extraordinary is unfolding in the depths of our solar system, something that future generations will read about in their history books. And we have the privilege of witnessing it in real time, of being present at a moment when everything might change. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning what you are told, and never stop looking up at that vast darkness between the stars. Because up there, among the moons of Jupiter, history is about to be written, and you deserve to know what it says.